Okay, Masechet. We're on Masechet 2a at the bottom, and it says Kidatanya. It was taught in the Baraisa. So we're at the bottom of the Gemara, Berachos, base Amid Aleph, and we begin the Mishnah's teaching of our Eliezer. It says that we have when may we begin to say the nighttime Kriya Shema? When may we begin this? This is from the Mishnah. From the and the Mishnah says, just a little review, from the time the Kohanim may eat the teruma, and the Gemara says that's the same as nightfall, the appearance of 3 stars. Okay, so why don't we just say at nightfall? So this is where we're at. The Gemara answers the Mishnah wanted to tell an additional insight that the Kohen who has certain types of tuma would even require to bring a korban the next day, still at nightfall. He can go now and eat the teruma, even though he cannot eat the kadashim, okay, or enter the Beis Hamikdash until he has the korban the next day. But he may eat the teruma, and the atonement factor is not required, right? From what we talked about last time. So just break it down a bit more. The Kohanim, he can eat the teruma, the donation, and of course he has to do a mikvah. The Kohen can eat the teruma once he has gone to the mikvah when the sun sets. Kidatanya, it says here, that was taught in the Baraisa. So we're in the center of the page that Shlomo has on the screen there. It was taught in the Baraisa, Uva Hashemesh v'taher. The Torah states regarding a Kohen who became Tameh and immersed himself when the sun goes down and the day had passed. So now we got to pay attention to these words. The Gemara is going to get into these words. V'taher. Thereafter, he may eat from the holy foods. From which we learn that Biyas Shimsho Me'arkavaso Mil Echo V'Turuma, the setting of the sun following his immersion holds him back from eating teruma. Okay, so the Bride explains this halakha that a Kohen can eat teruma once he has gone to the mikvah when the sun sets. In the Tanya it says Uba Hashemesh V'Taher. Now there's gonna be a whole discussion on what Uba is. It literally means when the sun comes. Okay, look at it again. It says when the sun comes down. Let's see what this version says here. And the sun sets and it is purified. And the absence of the setting of the sun prevents him from partaking of tumah. Okay, so Uba Hashemesh V'Teher. This discussion is going to come. It literally means when the sun comes, V'Teher. The simple meaning is, and he shall become purified. Okay, so when the sun comes, and he shall be purified. This is what Teher means. And afterwards, he eats from the kadashim, his food, which is referring to the tumah. So the question is, what does the word Uba Hashemesh mean? Okay, so it says here again, the setting of his sun following his immersion holds him back from eating teruma. Okay, so the Baraisa will say the following: when the sun comes down and the day has passed. So the Gemara is going to get into this, that there's 2 meanings to this. But he can eat the teruma. The simple meaning of the pasuk is, when the sun sets, he shall become tahor, meaning pure. Thereafter, he can eat the foods. However, the rabbis say v'taher refers to the sun. Okay, look at as it goes down more. So it says it holds him back from eating teruma. In kafar so me'arkavaso me'ochel teruma. But his atonement offering that he must bring the next day does not hold him back from eating teruma. When the sun goes down, he can eat. It doesn't hold him back. The Gemara's question, the Baraisa's understanding of the verse says, "Umay dahai." On what basis do you conclude this expression when the sun comes, Uba Hashemesh, means the setting of the sun. Okay, so the rabbis say Vateher refers to the sun, which means it's a complete disappearance at the point the stars come out. Everybody following so far?
Yes, sir.
So the Baraisa will explain these two words, Uba Hashemesh, as the sun comes down, Vateher, just like we say something is purified, Vateher, purified, that was there before and it's gone. So he had some kind of impurity and now it's gone, but the hair. So the same thing, now the rabbis are really saying, but the hair, not so much referring to the person purified, but actually meaning the passing of the day. The sun was there and now it's gone. There was light there and there was light that was there before and is now gone. And then you can eat it. So there's an argument of what the hair means. Is it referring to the person or is it actually referring to the sun? Okay. So how do they understand the pasuk? This is where the Baraisa is going to get into. Therefore means when it says Bias Hashemesh, Shimsho, it's the setting of the sun. Me'akavato, it holds him back. Mil elcho, the teruma, from eating the teruma. That's all he requires. He goes to the mikvah, the sun goes down, and now the day is done. And now he can eat teruma. But what does not hold him back from eating the teruma? But any atonement that he would need to bring the korban the next day does not hold him back from bringing the truma. So even though he still has to offer a korban, this does not hold him back from eating the truma once the sun sets. And that is the Baraisa. Okay, questions or anything right now? Everybody good? So let's see here. Yeah. And so here it says, the Baraisa explains that the pasuk this way. When a Kohen is Tame, it says Uba Hashemesh. The sun is Ba, means it sets, Vataher, and it means it disappears. No remnant of light. It only happens when 3 stars are out. It only and that may eat it, even though there's something else he may have to do personally, such as bringing a korban, that will not hold him back from eating teruma. So the Gemara asks, why does the Baraisa learn the pasuk this way? Why couldn't the Baraisa learn a pasuk another way and come up with a whole different interpretation? So as we go on, it'll say here, the Gemara questions the Baraisa's understanding of the verse. So they're going to dissect the verse here and say, does it really mean this? And it says, and what basis do you conclude that this expression and when the sun comes means the setting of the sun? And tahar yoma. And this expression, vataher, means the complete passing of the day, from which you derive that a Kohen may eat the teruma even before offering the offering. So it means bias Hashemesh. The Gemara asks, Uba umema, on what basis? Bias Hashemesh, it means the sun is setting. Vataher, it means the day passed, which means the Kohen can eat it. Why do we say this when it can mean something else? And the Gemara goes on, it says, Dilma bias orohu. It says perhaps the expression when the sun comes means the coming of light when the sun comes up in the morning the following day. And so instead of it meaning at night, uba can actually mean, it could perhaps mean, it doesn't even mean the set, it means the coming of its light, the sunrise. But the hair not referring to the day as it disappears, but the person should make himself tahor by offering the korban the next day when he has to bring a korban for a severe tumas that he has. So why don't we learn the pasuk this way? This is what the Gemara is asking. Why are we saying it means when the sun comes down? Perhaps it means when the sun comes up. It could mean this way. So, and therefore, he can only eat teruma the next day after he brings the the korban, because uba hashemesh, when the sun comes, it can mean come down. It can also mean come up. It can also mean come up. So the rabbis are now discussing, does it really mean when the day has passed, when the sun goes down, or does it mean when the sun comes up? Andrew, shalom. Glad to have you here. And so tahar could mean that the day is purified, or it can mean the person is tahor by offering the korban. And this would teach us the exact opposite. So why are you choosing to pick the pasuk one way when you could have chose the pasuk another way? You guys understand that they're actually taking, the rabbis are discussing the way it's first interpreted, and now they're saying perhaps we're actually interpreting it wrong. It could mean this way, because these words, uba hashemesh, doesn't necessarily have to mean the coming down of the sun, but the coming up of the sun, right? And so the Gemara answers, and it says, let's be careful about the words and what they mean. So it says here, Dilma bi'at oro uhu. Perhaps the expression when the sun comes means the coming of the light, when the sun comes up in the morning the following day. Umay the taher. And if so, what does the taher mean? Tahar gira. It means the person should make himself tahor by offering his sacrifice. Thus, the verse would be teaching the Kohen may eat the teruma only after his atonement offering. So now it's going a whole different way. No, he can only eat teruma after the korban. So which is the right way? Well, the Gemara continues. The Gemara answers, and it quotes Amar Rabba Bar Rab Shila. Rabba Bar Rab Shila said. So first it says, if you want to learn the way you say when it says vataher, so they're all discussing this word vataher that can mean purified, that it can also mean the day passing. Is it the person being purified, or is it the day being purified past? It means that when the person will have them purify themselves by bringing a korban, the word should not have been vataher. So he says, Rabba Bar Rab Shila said, who came? Lemakara v'taher, v'yitaher. If so, that the verse is instructing the Kohen to bring his offering in order to be allowed to eat teruma, let the verse say v'yitaher in the command form. My v'taher. Since the word does not use this form, what then is the meaning of v'taher? It says, really, if you wanted to be precise and understand what the pasuk really means about the person, it should have said v'yitaher. This would have made it more easier to understand the pasuk. But it says v'taher, tahar yomah. And it said, and Rabba Bar Rav Shila said, it must mean the passing of the day. Idamre inshe. As people say, I'arav shimsha, the idaki yomah. Idaki is actually the Aramaic for the taher, the passing. So he says the sun has set and the day has passed. So first, the Gemara says it was the person being purified, but Rabba Bar Rav Shila said perhaps the taher really means not referring to the person being purified, but the day being purified, meaning the day has passed, and now the sun is set, and the sun is set and the day is passed. So the rabbis are going through these varizas. And so what he says, it means that when the person will have then purify themselves by bringing a korban, the word should not be v'taher. If so, it should have said that the v'yitaher, which leaves no dispute. It would have said v'yitaher, which means it's a command. He shall purify himself. That would be clear. No doubt that would be what it means. But now the word v'taher can have one of two meanings. It's often used to refer to the person. In those instances, it cannot be mistaken. But there are certain places in the Torah where it says v'yitaher, and it clearly can only mean that a person can purify themselves. But here, if it was meant as a command for a person to do something, or if it's a statement, of the day where the sun goes away. It can mean either way. You guys following me still? I just want to make sure.
Yeah, first.
Okay. I'm talking fast here, but they're
It's all good. I've read it a few times, so
perfect. Yeah, I've gone through this about like 5 times this week. And so here in this pasuk, we can understand it either way. Also, the word taher could also apply to the sun. So if you wanted to apply to the person, it should just say vayitaher, and he shall purify himself. This would be clear. So why here does it say vayitaher? It means the passing of the day. So this is the proof that the pasuk means to say according to the bride's halakha. Now he goes on. The Gemara offers a different version of the analysis of the verse. Is this really the case? Now this was all interpreted here. Rav Shila, this is all studied in Babylonia, in Babel. They were all learning this way in Babel. The Gemara is going to say something over just in Eretz Israel. They were not familiar with the comment of Rabbi Bar Shila. Okay, so Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, he was familiar with all the barizas, and he's just putting all the barizas there, and we're going to see the argument. Okay, so when it says here, Bemar Rava, in the west, which always refers to Eretz Israel, which is located southwest of Babel. So they did not hear our Bar Shila's interpretation. The students in Eretz Israel did not know this interpretation of the pasuk that way, and therefore themselves just asked it as a question. When it says Uba Hashemesh, is it the setting of the sun? Uba V'Teher, or does it mean the passing of the day? Or maybe it means the sun is passing or the coming of the light. And so they ask, it says here, Ha de Rabba Bar Rav Shila lo Shemia Lehu. In the west of Eretz Israel, they did not hear this exposition of Rabba Bar Rav Shila. Uva'u la mibaya. And they therefore ask this question. Hi, Uva Hashemesh, the Ashashim Shohu. When the verse uses this expression, when the sun comes, doesn't mean the setting of the sun. Umay v'taher, taher yomah. And what does v'taher mean? It means the passing of the day, o dilma, the as or rohu. Or perhaps this expression, when the sun comes, means the coming of the light on the morning of the following day. Umay v'taher, tahar gavra. And if so, what does v'taher mean? It means the person makes himself tahor by bringing his offering. So now they're actually not saying what Rabbi Bar Shila said. They say v'taher means the person becoming purified. Subsequently, they resolved this question from a baraiza that follows, and it says mitakani bibavaraisa. Since it is states in the baraiza cited below, okay, so it says straight out. It says they're going to prove this. What is the true interpretation from another baraiza? They're going to a different baraiza, and actually they're going back to the Mishnah when it says a sign for this matter. It says they clearly learned this pasuk, when the sun goes down, the day is purified. That's unlike what Arshila, who demonstrated this point from the wording of the verse itself, learned it from the wording of the verse. Rav Shila picks apart the words, but the students in Eretz Israel learned it actually from according to the tradition. The way was taught by tradition. They just said it clearly states when the Kohen who is Tameh can begin eating at the appearance of the stars, and that's how they learned it. And that's when the Kohen can eat it without going back to the pasuk. It means the sun goes down. It means the setting of the sun, get the hair, the day has passed. So we see them going back and forth here. But as we see, the students in Eretz Israel, The sages, they learned it straight as it says through tradition, right? And any comments or anything so far? Questions? Good. Okay, so all we did so far is explain the halakha that a Kohen who is Tameh, it even requires a korban to be brought. He may eat teruma once he goes to the mikvah and the sun is set and the day has passed. Now for the balance of the page, what the Gemara is going to do, it's going to bring a number of varieties. Our Mishnah here is very clear. There's no machlokas in our Mishnah about when you may begin to say the nighttime Shema. You begin only after nightfall, when the stars come out. There is a machloket, so on how long you can say it, what time up to can you say it? But there's no machloket in our Mishnah when you begin to say it. The Gemara, so the Mishnah literally says when the stars come out. The Gemara is going to say, are these other Berachos arguing on this halakha the Mishnah presents, or are they not arguing on the Mishnah? And we're going to bring the Berachos and say, well, maybe it's arguing or maybe it's not. So we're going to try to see if there's any dispute of the saying the Shema when the stars come out. That's all the Gemara is going to do till basically the bottom of the page. And the Gemara is going to look at it as if it's arguing, but you don't have to say it's arguing. Okay, so maybe they agree. The third Berachos is going to come along and say, okay, there is a potential argument. We will see there is 5 different opinions on when to say the nighttime Shema. So hopefully we're on the same page right here. We're going to go to the master Amar Mar. You see that there, Shlomo? Let's start with Amar Mar. Oh, you got to go down a bit more. So that's Rav Shila where I was just talking about here. There's the Eretz Israel. Okay. Here we are right here. Yeah, in our Mishnah. Okay, and so it says here, Amar Mar, the master said in the Mishnah. So I had a question on YouTube. Who is the master? Some thought this was Hashem. You guys know when who it refers to when it says the master? Sometimes it'll even say Rabbi. Okay, who is the master? This is actually Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, the prince. Whenever it refers to him, because he's the one that actually wrote down the oral Torah, so he knows all the Berachos and everything. Yeah. So this is something also we just should learn as we're studying. And it says, Amar Mar, the master said in the Mishnah that the time one may begin reciting the Shema is Misha'a shehakohanim niknasim le'achol b'terumasan. And from the time the Kohanim who were Tameh may enter to eat the teruma. All of a sudden, it's going right back. Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi is going right back to the Mishnah. And it says, Ur minuhu. Okay, so this word here, Ur minuhu, literally means a conflicting baraza. And Rami means to throw. It means to throw. Like you're throwing one against the other. This is like arguing against one another. So the Gemara is saying it would appear there's a contrasting baraza that seems to disagree. The baraza says that when do we read the Shema at night? But they don't give an answer when the Kohen begins to eat the teruma. So it just says from the time the Kohen eat the tam, who were Tameh may enter the teruma, but it doesn't actually give you the time. It doesn't give you the answer. This Baraza delivers an answer when the poor person, so if we see here, they're going to follow up with another Baraza here. Okay, and it says, Me'amasai chorin es shema the aravim. From when may we recite the Shema in the evenings? Misha'ani nichnas le'chol beto be'malach. Melach. And it says, from when a poor person enters to eat his bread with salt. Ad sha'a she'omed lipater mitoch se'udoso. It says, until the time he gets up to take leave from his meal. Okay? So he actually, this Berachos says when he begins, when he enters to eat bread with salt, this is the evening meal. And the time is only until when he gets up to leave the meal. You guys understand that? Okay, you guys understand the time frame that he has to say the Shema? This Berachos is saying, what is the time frame this Berachos is saying he can say the Shema? From the beginning to end, what time?
Star falls till midnight, isn't it?
No. So if you look carefully, it says when he enters to eat, and basically until the time he's done his dinner, which is basically about 15 minutes.
Oh yeah, sorry, I have a baby crying.
No, no problem. It's not even a long time. This Berachos is saying no, he only has about 15 minutes to say the Shema, and that's it. It says Ushak Baka means the time when people are going to sleep. So the poor person doesn't have much to do. Okay, this is why it brings in the poor person. The poor person, what's he gonna do? Once it gets dark, he doesn't really have lights. He doesn't have much to do.
Just getting off work. He's just getting home. So he's got 15 minutes to eat.
Yeah, he's got to eat before lights go really dark. And then what are you gonna do? You're gonna go to sleep. So let's look at this opinion. And does it disagree with our Mishnah or not? So this is what the rabbis are saying. Are we all in agreement with the Mishnah or not? The Mishnah, we begin at nightfall. If you guys remember, there was 3 opinions on how long you have to say the Shema. Okay, now this is important. If we read through the Mishnah, we should know these 3 opinions. If not, this is really good to memorize right here. So there's 3 opinions. One opinion says 1/3 of the night. Another opinion is halfway through the night. And the other opinion is all the way through the whole night. Andrew, you got a question?
You guys can hear me, right?
Yep.
Okay. No, I was thinking of something else. But I'll wait. You can continue. But I think it'll connect.
Okay. So this one thing is for sure. The second statement of this Berachos says you only have the Shema until he finishes his meal. This Berachos argues on all 3 opinions of the Mishnah. Because it's the shortest opinion, and because the shortest opinion in the Mishnah is 1/3 of the night. This is basically, you got 15 minutes. So this is much earlier than the other opinions. The question is, we have though, it's the first statement. When the poor person begins to eat his meal, so we also say that it argues with our Mishnah as well. The Gemara assumes at this point that a poor person eats before nightfall. Why? Because he can't afford a candle to which he eats his meal, and therefore he eats while there is still some daylight. Okay, and this also disputes our Mishnah, which cites the earliest time to say the Shema is when the Kohanim resume eating, Teruma, when the stars come out. So it appears that the Berachos also disagrees, or one could argue, no, this is the same time as the Kohanim when the stars come out, but the rabbis have different ways of describing it. So one could say it's arguing against the Mishnah that the poor person is actually eating before the stars come out, or one could say no, it's actually just using a different example of the poor person, which actually lines up with the Kohanim eating when the stars come out. So it could be that when the poor person eats his meal, this is the very same time that the Kohanim could eat the teruma, which is when the stars come out. So even according to this answer, the poor eat earlier than others. And we will see which is why the Berachos speaks of when a poor person enters to eat. Nevertheless, they do not eat before nightfall. The Gemara assumes if he was eating before nightfall, no, that even when the stars come out, there's still a little light. So even when the stars come out, there's still a little light. So now Tosafos asks a question. this won't be on the screen here, but Tosafos asks a question. The same time the Kohen begins to eat, okay, if you say that, that's when you begin to say the Shema. And the poor guy eats. So Tosafos asks the obvious question. If the time begins reciting the Shema when the poor begins to eat, when do the poor recite the Shema? Or even when the Kohen eats to Teruma, it's when he is tahor to eat. They get to eat after they get to eat it. They get to eat after they eat. So after their tahor, because we learn later on, the first eat they first eat the evening meal before reciting the Shema and the Shemoni Ezra, which we will learn on Daf Dalet. So Tosafos is going to conclude from this time must actually be a few minutes before the poor person sits down to eat during the short time needed to ready his meal. Okay? So this is why it actually says, when we're reading about the poor person, it says, from when a poor person enters to eat his bread with his salt, not when he sits down to eat, but when he enters. This means as soon as he enters his home, his family is beginning to prepare his meal. He may recite the Shema and pray Maras. Where am I reading? Okay, so Shlomo, are you following along with me right? Oh yeah, this is right now from Tosafos what I'm reading. So it's not actually on the page, but what I'm commenting from is when it says they contrasted the ruling of our Mishnah with the ruling of the Bride. From when may we recite the Shema in the evening? From when a poor person enters to eat bread with salt. So it should be there. Yeah, from when a poor person, yeah, right at the top there, I believe it is. Yeah, maybe one up there, Shlomo. I think you're go up one paragraph. Like scroll up the screen. I think you're two ahead. Yeah, right there. Yeah, from when, right here, the Gemara begins to clarify, right? And it begins its analysis by clarifying whether, is this about the poor person or am I lost here? Yeah, from when a poor person enters to eat his bread with salt until he rises from his meal, right in the middle section there. Okay, so it means it's before he actually sits down to eat. All right, and so it's when the 3 stars appear, but he's not actually biting into the food. It's just another of describing another example of describing this time. So when the 3 stars may be appearing, but he's not eating the meal yet. So Baraza number 1, we know the end of the Baraza, the ending of the time when he finishes his meal, he clearly argues with the 3 opinions. So this is the time he has up to. But the beginning time, we thought maybe arguing, because maybe he's doing it before the stars appear, but perhaps he's actually not eating the meal yet, and the stars are appearing and he's saying the Shema. And then he sits down to eat. So maybe it is exactly the same time when he enters to eat. So this isn't a dispute. That's in the Baraza number 1. Now there's another Baraza. So first it says Seifa V'dai Kiligat Amat Nisim. So where are we here? Are we following along? Yep, right there. So the end of the Baraza, which states that the latest one may recite the evening Shema is when the poor get up from their meal, certainly disputes all the opinions cited in our Mishnah. However, we shall say that the beginning of the Baraza, which states that the earliest one may recite the evening Shema, is when a poor person enters to eat his evening meal of bread. Also disputes our Mishnah, which states the earliest one may recite the evening Shema is when the Kohen whose Tame is permitted to eat Teruma. And we say lo, or we can say, so it maybe this is actually the same time the Kohanim actually say the Shema. Lo, it says Ani v'hakohen had shira who. The time given in regard to a poor person and the time given in regard to a Kohen are the same time. So perhaps they are the same time. Now there's Baraita, another one. It says here, and it says for Nehu, they contrasted this explanation of the Baraita with the following Baraita. The Amasai, Matlichim, Lechros, Kiryat, Shema, the Arabi. From when may we begin reciting the Shema in the evening? Okay, so when may we begin? When do we begin to read the Kriya Shema at night? It says, now we're not talking about poor people. It's when people begin to eat their Friday night meals. So it says, let's see, from the time when may we begin reciting the Shema in the evening? From the time that people enter to eat their bread on Shabbat evening, on Friday evening. But Divrei Rabbi Meir, these are the words of our Meir. The Omrim. The sages, though, the rabbis actually say, so Rabbi Meir, what's unique, he's saying, what's unique about Friday night, on the Friday night meal? What's the difference with a Friday night meal and a weekday meal? Why is this bride being brought up? What does our Rabbi Meir argue right now? Let's have an idea. What's the difference? So the question is, when do you prepare a meal on Wednesday night? Well,
Oddly enough, it's the same time for us, so I'm kind of thrown.
yeah, there's actually no rush to make a Wednesday night meal. We can do it
Right.
when the sun goes down. There's no problem with that.
But there is a time limit on the Sabbath Eve.
Exactly. You can prepare it when the sun goes down and everyone's working, but Shabbos, you can't start preparing your meal when the sun goes down. So the meal is prepared early before the sun goes down. So when people enter to eat on Friday night, it is earlier than within the week. That's Rabbi Meir's opinion. Divrei Rabbi Meir. When people start eating their meal on Friday night, but the sages say, so it says, the Chachamim Omrim, from the time that the Kohanim who were Tameh are entitled to eat their teruma again. It says, and the sign for this is the appearance of the star. Even though there is no proof to this matter, that the day ends when the stars appear. So now the Gemara is saying, really, we say the Shema when the stars appear. But really, is this the proof that the day really ends when the three stars appear? Just because we say that? This is the beginning of the lesson. Our Meir is not saying like the sages. So when the regular people are eating on Friday night, it has to be a different time. So our Meir is arguing on our Mishnah, but the sages disagree, even though there's no proof. So how do we know when the day ends and the stars appear? Or that's when the day ends, when it's actually nighttime. When is the day over? When does the sun go down? I don't know. We don't know. So there's still some light when the stars come out, right? And so maybe, where's the proof? So we'll finish up the Baraita and it quotes, and it says, even though there's no proof, it says, Zacher ledavar. There's an indication of this matter in the following verse. Shnei Amar, for it states, V'anachnu osim b'melacha v'chitzion machazikim b'rachamim me'olos hashachar ad zeis hachochavim. So, and it's quotes, and that's actually quoting Nehemiah chapter 4, verse 15. It says, so we did the work with half of them grasping the spears from the rising of dawn until the appearance of the stars. So here we're seeing about the workers. So it says, so we did the work. Ah, I guess that's when the day is over, the saying. And it states further. So it says, Ve'omer. And it states in the next verse, V'hayu lanu halayla nishmar, v'hayom melacha. And the night was for us a watch and the day for work. So we have two pasukim that are hinting when the stars come out, that it's nighttime. But why? The question is, why do we need two verses? Maiva Omer. Why do we need a second pasuk? This is what it's asking here. Maiva Omer. What is the point of adding? And it states further. The rabbis want to know, why do we even need the second verse? We could have just went off the first verse. They work and then the stars come out. And the first one maybe is actually the reason why they needed the second pasuk is the first one, maybe they were really hard workers. And maybe the day was actually over and they just decided to keep working when the stars came out and the day had already passed. Maybe they're doing overtime. So the second one is to show us that the night was for a watch and the day for work. So now this is just confirmed the day ends when the sun, when the stars appear. And so it says here, and if you will perhaps say that as soon as the sun sets, it is considered night. But they continue to work after dark. That's what they say. And after sunset, until the stars came out and they began working early with the rising of the dawn before the day actually began. Thus, the length of the workday does not prove when the day legally begins and ends. Hashema. Then come learn the proof from the next verse. And it says, Lanu halayla mishmar v'hayom malacha. And the night was for a watch and the day for work, which indicates that the entire workday period mentioned in the previous verse is considered day. And then the Gemara now explains the proof from this Berachos that the time that a poor person enters to eat his bread cannot be the identical time to the time the Kohen can begin eating teruma again. So it says, Has salcha the atak. The ani uvne adam chad shruahu. It was initially assumed that the time a poor person begins his weeknight meal, all and the time the people begin their Shabbat Eve meal are one and the same time. Now, if you say that the time given in regard to a poor person and the time given in regard to a Kohen are the same time, Rabbi Meir. And then the opinion of the sages and the brides is not the same as the opinion of our Meir there. And this cannot be, for this Berachos cites them as opposing views. Rather, you should learn from this, and a poor person is a time to itself, and the time stated regard to a Kohen is a time to itself. They are different times. This disproves the earlier assertion that they are the same time. And so I actually studied all of that through the week. I reviewed it. I know I could have went right to 3A, but I figure we'll do the last section plus a quiz the next Zoom study.
Quiz.
Yeah, for sure, because this will help us memorize the Mishnah, memorize this daf before we go on, and our learning will be good. But we can discuss and ask questions now. I'll just stop the recording.